All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to Unit 3, Day 5. And today we're going to talk all about photosynthesis. So let's go ahead and dive right into the chloroplast. Let's get started. All right, so we're looking at Unit 3, Day 5. And today's aim is how does the process of photosynthesis function to support life? So this word, photosynthesis, means from light. And in this case, the light that we're talking about is the sun. So solar energy shines on little green plants. And inside of this leaf, there are individual cells. And those cells are plant cells. And inside of the plant cells, they have the specialized structure, the chloroplast. And it is within that little chloroplast that is green itself, the structure, where this process takes place. So to make from light, and we'll add in the chloroplast. And you can see a little chloroplast down there that we're about to talk about. But funny, even though we're talking about photosynthesis, this starts off talking about cellular respiration. Almost like these two processes are related. It's so weird. So what are the products? What is made at the end of cellular respiration? So I'm going to start with the reactants. So for cellular respiration, we have oxygen plus glucose, and it's usually to balance the equation 6O2, C6, oops, C6, H12, O6. So that's oxygen plus glucose yields H2O, CO2, and ATP. And we know that that's energy. But these first two here, H2O and CO2, are related to our process of photosynthesis and how organisms, especially plants, maintain homeostasis. Woo, excuse me. But where does cellular respiration take place? Hopefully you're all drawing with me right now. We know cellular respiration happens in the mighty mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. We love her. We stand up for her. She is involved in the process of releasing energy. What an icon. Mitochondria. Without her, none of us would have any ATP. Okay. That wasn't even a joke. That's just true. But, all right, let's go on to part A. Part A, photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, and now this is why I said not just plant cells. Photosynthesis, emphasis mine, is essential for all life on Earth. What? How is that possible? Because it provides food and oxygen. So you know how you can eat vegetables, right? And when you eat vegetables, they give you energy? Well, that's because of the organic molecules that are synthesized within autotrophs, producers, or plants. And all those three words mean the same things. So plants are autotrophs. They make their own energy. And Specifically, they make their own energy in the form of synthesizing from sunlight energy and carbon dioxide this new compound of glucose. This is how plants make food. So all of the life on Earth, the energy that we get comes originally from the sun, but comes directly from the bonds in these organic molecules that are synthesized via photosynthesis. So the energy that we have inside of our bodies, even if we are meat eaters, even if we eat meat, comes directly from plant cells. Because even if let's say we ate a cow or a pig or some other animal, the food that that animal ate to grow to its size, the energy that is inside of that animal originated within a plant cell. Whoa, it's pretty cool stuff. All right, so plants are considered autotrophs. And again, this term, autotrophs, that we've talked about before, so self-producing energy. And they make their own food using this process. So autotroph equals a plant. And another word for that is producers, because they produce their own food. Look at that chloroplast. And whenever I see a chloroplast, I always feel like it looks like there's a little stack of pancakes inside the chloroplast. Some pancakes for you. But you can think about it like those are little pancakes, because really, what are you making in there but glucose? Right? So there's a reason it looks so sweet. They're making sugar in there. All right, so let's talk about the chloroplast. Photosynthesis is a process in which sunlight energy is used to make glucose. The site of photosynthesis is in the chloroplast, an organelle found in the leaves of green plants. So a note here, when we look at plant cells in the lab, sometimes we'll observe a plant cell, like in an onion, where there's no chloroplast present. Well, that's because, as you guys might be familiar with plants, just like other organisms, have different parts, have different body parts. And not every plant cell has the chloroplast. And we know that the chloroplast and chlorophyll are related, and chlorophyll is the protein or the pigment that makes plants green. And so some plants, the whole plant is green, but in the case of some plants where the only part of the plant that is green are the leaves or the stem, that's where the chloroplasts are. So just as a note, not every plant cell has a chloroplast, but every plant does have chloroplast. Okay, unless I guess there's something terribly wrong with that, but that's beyond the purview of this class. So the main functions of chloroplasts are to produce food. And again, that word produce helps us remember that we're talking about producers. And specifically, we're talking about glucose, which is C6H12O6. During photosynthesis and to store food energy. So the main functions of chloroplasts are to produce food during photosynthesis and to store food energy. So that's what is happening in those little pancake stacks. And within the chloroplast itself is not only is the glucose being synthesized, but it's then being stored. So they're making the glucose and then they're storing it there within the chloroplast. Chloroplasts contain the pigment chlorophyll. Chlorophyll absorbs most of the colors in the color spectrum and reflects only green and yellow wavelengths of light. This is why we see leaves as green or yellow, because these colors are reflected into our eyes. That's pretty cool. So what is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is a process in which sunlight energy is used to make glucose. So photosynthesis is a process by which sunlight energy and carbon dioxide react to form organic compounds glucose, or the organic compound glucose. Please enjoy that Apple News notification about Ariana Grande. So, where does photosynthesis occur? Photosynthesis occurs within the chloroplast. And I, just for my own brain, always like to think of the chloroplast like those little green stacks of pancakes. And you can see why. And again, that helps me understand what the chloroplast does, because if you think about it, it has a bunch of little stacks of pancakes in there. You know, there's a bunch of glucose, a bunch of sugar stored within the chloroplast. And if they're in there making the pancakes, that's making the glucose as well. So what are chloroplasts? Chloroplasts are organelles within the leaves of green plants. What are the two main functions of chloroplast? We just said this, but right, they're making the pancakes and they're storing them to make and store food energy in the form of glucose, specifically glucose. All right. Why do most leaves appear green? Because yellow and green are reflected by chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is a pigment, which is a protein, similar to is it erythromycin? No, cyanomycin. In the red cabbage indicator in the pH lab, cyanomycin. Because yellow and green, I think erythromycin is an antibiotic, but forgive me. Why do most leaves appear green? Because yellow and green are reflected by the pigment chlorophyll. So our eyes only absorb the colors yellow and green because everything else is reflected off. And that's chlorophyll, and it is a green pigment. And if any of you have ever seen the Adam Sandler movie that came out before you were all born called Billy Madison, there is a scene in that movie where he's sitting in a science class learning about the process of photosynthesis, and he says, chlorophyll, more like borophyll. And even though chlorophyll is pretty interesting stuff, every time I say chlorophyll, I think about that. So hopefully now you will as well. And all right, we're almost done here now with section 2. And then the bottom there, where we're going to do a little review of the chemical names of some compounds that we've been studying this year in living environment. So let's continue. All right, section 2, photosynthesis. Glucose is another name for sugar. The molecular formula for glucose is C6H12O6. Plants make sugar. Oh no. Plants make sugar by using the energy from sunlight to transform CO2 from the air with water from the ground into glucose. So they transform carbon dioxide found in the air with water from the ground into glucose. This process is called photosynthesis. and it occurs in the chloroplast of a plant cell. During this process, oxygen is created as a waste byproduct and is released into the air for us to breathe. Pretty cool. Thanks, plants. The formula for photosynthesis is CO2 or carbon dioxide. So CO2, color blue. Okay, no good. CO2 plus H2O, so carbon dioxide plus water. That comes from the roots of the plant, plus sunlight. Right, so this is why it's good for plants to grow outside. Yields, and whenever you see this arrow, that's what it represents, is yields. The products. Glucose, and oxygen. So the fact that oxygen is released as a byproduct of this process is very critical to how life on Earth formed. And there were periods in time in the geological history of the planet Earth when there was much more or much less oxygen in the atmosphere. And a big part of how more oxygen wound up in the atmosphere was the evolution of and the global domination of plants, and specifically carboniferous trees, which is what all the fossil fuels come from. And they have carbon bonds in them, and that's where the energy in fossil fuels comes from. Pretty cool. Chemical bonds, they store a lot of energy. So this formula says that carbon dioxide plus water molecules are combined with the energy from sunlight to produce sugar and oxygen. The reactants in photosynthesis, what is used, are carbon dioxide, water, and sun. The plant gets water from the ground through its roots. The plant collects carbon dioxide from the air. Much of the carbon dioxide comes from living organisms like us that exhale or breathe it out. But some also comes from factory smokestacks and car fumes. And what this is hinting at more broadly is the carbon cycle, which we will talk about in ecology. But as you guys are most likely aware, on planet Earth right now, we have too much carbon dioxide. And a big part of the reason why we have so much excess carbon dioxide is because of deforestation, so cutting down plants, and also an increase in industrialization and the number of cars on the road over the past, especially 100 years. And that increased amount of CO2 being released from industrialization, combined with, at the same time period, record deforestation, so humans taking so many trees down all over the world, has affected the entire planet. And our entire planet's ability to maintain dynamic equilibrium or homeostasis of the broader ecosystem, or in this case, the Terra system, the entire planet. But there's a reason why we're doing a project on this, guys. This is big stuff. These are the main ideas of biology here. So what is the formula for photosynthesis? You can see it right there, but I'm going to rewrite it down here. We have carbon dioxide that is maybe coming from me exhaling. So like if I had a little green plant next to me right now, that little green plant would be so happy and I would be so happy too. Because as I exhale, I'm giving the little green plant carbon dioxide, and as it exhales, it's giving me oxygen. And in that way, we both benefit. And that's why it is good to have indoor plants in your home. And it's good for the air quality of a city or a community to have lots of healthy, thriving plants. But what is the formula that creates the oxygen that we like from these plants? It is carbon dioxide plus H2O plus water plus sunlight yields glucose, and this is the important thing for the plants, and O2. And so this, important for plant. But then this, important for us. Right? Part of the reason why human beings are so concerned about problems like deforestation is because we're selfish, and we know that we can't continue to live if not for also the biodiversity of the planet, which includes many, many plants. Number 8, what are 3 things used to make glucose in photosynthesis? So those are the reactants, and that is CO2, H2O or water, and sunlight. Where does the water come from? The ground, and it's absorbed through the roots. So these are the roots of the plant, and we draw an arrow, some water down here. It's absorbed by roots. Okay. Where does the water enter the plant? Almost like I knew that question was coming, but didn't know it would be written out. I wanted to make sure to tell you that it was absorbed by the roots. See diagram on number 9. Number 11, name 3 sources of CO2. So our exhalation, humans, animals exhaling, industrialization, so factories, so pollution, vehicles, and we'll add another one, industrial farming, or as is often depicted, this is a source more of methane though than CO2, is industrial farming and specifically cow farts. But that's not included in the passage, but that's one of the major sources of CO2 globally. What type of energy does the plant use to convert CO2 and H2O into sugar? So the plant uses sunlight, which is light energy from the sun, or photo energy, which is why the process is called photosynthesis. And all right, now we're going to go down here, and we just went through all of these in this passage many times, but let's make sure that we write it out. So the chemical name for carbon dioxide, the way you would abbreviate it is CO2. So whenever you see CO2, that's carbon dioxide. Oxygen is abbreviated O2 because that means oxygen gas. If you ever read about like dissolved oxygen, it's O2. Water is H2O, 2 hydrogens, and 1 oxygen. Glucose is C6H12O6. And this one down here, ATP, that we know is energy, that is adenosine triphosphate. And that is actually a nucleic acid, fun fact. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, so please don't forget to go and complete your exit ticket. I do believe the exit ticket will be a version of this chart, although I could be mistaken. I know that's one of your exit tickets from Unit 3. But we have here Unit 3, Day 5. Today's aim was how does the process of photosynthesis function to support life? And we talked about how plant cells produce glucose within the specialized structure of the chloroplast, and they produce this glucose through the process of photosynthesis by converting light energy from the sun water gathered from the plant's roots and carbon dioxide gathered from the environment into the products of glucose, so synthesizing an organic molecule, uh, and and oxygen, which we are able to breathe in as part of the ecosystems with plants. Okay, so again, that was photosynthesis within the chloroplast. You can feel free to reference this video as you prepare for part 2 of our Unit 3 nutrition project. And I hope you guys have a super fantastic day, and I'll see you all tomorrow on Zoom. Bye, guys.